The lights inside the SK Arena in St. Petersburg cut through the cold October night like searchlights over a battlefield. Thousands of fans rose from their seats, the low rumble of anticipation rolling through the building as the IBA.PRO 10 card marched toward its heavyweight climax. This was not just another bout on an already stacked bill. This was the moment where reputations met reality. Flags waved in the stands, Russian tricolors clashed with pockets of green, white, and blue from Uzbek supporters who had traveled far to witness something they believed was inevitable. Heavyweights bring a different gravity to the room. Every footstep echoes louder, every breath carries weight, and every punch feels like it could rewrite a career. At 36 years old, Vitaly Kudukhov entered first, a stocky, barrel-chested veteran from Russia's rugged boxing system, forged in the unforgiving crucible of World Series boxing and national championships. He wasn't here for ceremony. His expression told the story of a man who had already accepted pain as part of the job. Then came the giant, Bakhodir Jalolov of Uzbekistan, 6'7", a southpaw colossus stepping over the top rope with the calm confidence of a man who had stood atop Olympic podiums not once, but twice. Two-time Olympic super heavyweight champion, two-time world champion, an undefeated professional record. His presence alone shifted the air in the arena. This wasn't just about another win. This was about the transition. The unanswered question hovered over the ring. Could amateur greatness survive the brutality, fatigue, and mental warfare of professional heavyweight boxing? As the referee called them together for final instructions, the contrast was stark. Elegance versus abrasion, pedigree versus persistence. 8 rounds stood between legacy and exposure. And both men understood that once the bell rang, there would be nowhere to hide. The opening round unfolded like a chess match played with sledgehammers. Jalolov, draped in dark green trunks trimmed with gold, immediately asserted his reach, flicking out a long southpaw jab that snapped Kudukhov's head back and forced him to reset. The Uzbek giant moved with deceptive lightness, circling the ring, pivoting off angles that shouldn't exist for a man weighing over 112 kilograms. His timing was sharp, his distance impeccable, a master technician controlling space like a seasoned conductor. Kudukhov, meanwhile, wasted no time revealing his intent. He pressed forward, shoulders hunched, chin tucked, absorbing shots just to get inside. A stiff left from Jalolov landed clean, followed by a right jab that split the guard, drawing a murmur from the crowd. But Kudukhov didn't blink. He kept walking. In those early minutes, the pattern seemed clear. Jalolov scoring cleanly, efficiently, painting the canvas with precision. Kudukhov grinding forward, willing to eat leather if it meant closing distance. The crowd reacted to every clean connection, gasping when Jalolov's left hand cracked through the guard, roaring when Kudukhov answered with a rough body shot in close. The second round reinforced the narrative. Jalolov's 1-2s were crisp, his footwork disciplined, his composure absolute. Yet beneath the surface, something else was brewing. Kudukhov began leaning, pushing, dragging the fight into uncomfortable territory. Forearms pressing into ribs, gloves scraping faces, elbows sneaking into clinches. It wasn't pretty, but it was intentional. By the end of the early rounds, Jalolov was clearly ahead on the cards, but the veteran had planted a seed of doubt. He hadn't come to win rounds, he had come to test resolve. And as the bell rang, the crowd sensed it too. This fight was quietly turning from a showcase into a trial. As the middle rounds arrived, the bout shifted from distance to discomfort. Kudukhov began to turn the ring into a phone booth, crowding Jalolov's chest, dragging him into clinches, making every exchange physical and taxing. Each time the referee separated them, the Russian surged forward again, slamming shots into the body, sneaking punches around the guard, forcing the Olympic champion to work just to breathe. Jalolov responded with flashes of brilliance, a thunderous left cross that snapped Kudukhov's head sideways, a sharp body shot that echoed through the arena. But the effort required to keep the veteran off him was starting to show. Sweat flew with every exchange, and the once fluid movement of the Uzbek giant began to stiffen. The crowd's energy changed. Where there had been awe, now there was tension. Every clinch drew boos, every rough tactic ignited debate, but no one could deny its effectiveness. Kudukhov wasn't winning rounds cleanly, but he was winning moments, moments of doubt, moments of fatigue, moments where Jalolov had to think instead of flow. By round 4, Jalolov planted his feet and fired with intent, unloading heavy southpaw bombs that forced Kudukhov to brace himself and exhale through clenched teeth. Yet even then, the Russian marched on, absorbing punishment and returning fire with sheer will. The fight had become something else entirely, no longer a technical lesson, but a psychological war. Jalolov was being forced into territory he had rarely visited, prolonged adversity. And with every passing minute, the question grew louder. Could talent alone carry him through, or would he need something deeper? The fifth round marked the turning point, the moment when the fight cracked open and revealed its true nature. Kudukhov, emboldened by his success inside, surged forward with renewed aggression, catching Jalolov during a moment of fatigue. A heavy shot landed as Jalolov dipped toward the canvas, forcing him to take a knee. A shockwave rippled through the arena. Gasps turned into roars, disbelief hanging thick in the air. Kudukhov, fueled by instinct, followed up and struck while Jalolov was down, earning an immediate point deduction. Chaos reigned. Moments later, Jalolov, visibly rattled, resorted to excessive holding, earning a deduction of his own. In a single round, momentum swung wildly, and the fight teetered on the edge. Jalolov's body language betrayed him, mouth open, shoulders heavy, eyes searching. Kudukhov sensed it. He stalked like a predator who smelled blood, bullying his way inside, forcing exchanges, daring the champion to respond. The crowd was fully alive now, chanting, arguing, reacting to every collision. This was no longer about medals or records. This was about survival. Jalolov, once composed and commanding, now looked human, vulnerable, dragged into a fight he hadn't planned for. The bell ended the round, but the damage, physical and mental, lingered. In the corner, his team worked frantically, towels whipping, voices urgent, not instructing technique, but demanding heart. Dig deep, find something, because the storm wasn't passing, it was intensifying. Rounds 6 and 7 became a battle of endurance, a test of soul. Kudukhov continued his relentless advance, eating jabs just to land one punishing shot inside, leaning his weight onto Jalolov, forcing him to carry every ounce of it. Jalolov tried to escape on his toes, flicking jabs, spinning off angles, but his movements lacked the snap they once had. Fatigue had dulled his weapons. Every left hand now came with effort, every retreat with heavy legs. Still, flashes of his brilliance returned. Clean counters, sharp jabs, moments where he reasserted control, and reminded everyone why he was special. But Kudukhov refused to fade. He was the embodiment of defiance, a man who accepted pain as currency. Each clench, each forearm, each grinding exchange drained Jalolov further. The crowd respected it. They might not have loved the tactics, but they understood the courage. By the 7th round, Jalolov found a second wind, rediscovering rhythm, dancing just enough to reclaim distance. The jabs landed again, the left cross found its mark, and for the first time in several rounds, Kudukhov had to chase rather than impose. Yet even then, Jalolov's vulnerability lingered. He won the rounds, but he didn't dominate them. He survived, and sometimes survival tells a louder story than victory. The final round arrived with both men marked by battle. Jalolov circled, disciplined, determined not to let the fight slip any further. His jab became his lifeline, flicking, stabbing, disrupting Kudukhov's forward march. The Russian kept coming, tank-like, refusing to concede the psychological ground he had earned. Inside, he roughed Jalolov up one last time, forcing clinches, muscling him around, reminding him that points don't erase discomfort. Jalolov answered with clean combinations, sharp counters, doing enough to seal the contest, but never quite stamping absolute authority. The bell rang, and the crowd rose, applauding not just the winner, but the war they had witnessed. Jalolov exhaled deeply, hands on knees, knowing he had been pushed. Kudukhov returned to his corner upright, proud, knowing he had exposed cracks and earned respect. This wasn't a simple win-loss narrative. It was a collision of truth. When the judges' scorecards were read, the result was clear, a unanimous decision victory for Bakhodir Jalolov. His undefeated record remained intact. But boxing is a sport that remembers more than results. It remembers moments. It remembers vulnerability. And on this night, Jalolov learned that professional heavyweight boxing demands more than skill and size. It demands resilience, physical presence, and the willingness to endure chaos. Kudukhov, despite defeat, walked away with his stock raised, having proven that grit and pressure can unsettle even the most decorated champions. He didn't win the fight on paper, but he won something harder to measure: belief. Belief that the giant could be shaken. Belief that the road ahead for Jalolov would not be smooth. As the lights dimmed inside the SK arena, one truth echoed louder than any announcement. This fight was not the end of a journey. It was the beginning of a reckoning. Jalolov remains a generational talent, a towering figure with the tools to reach the summit of the heavyweight division. But tonight, he was reminded that greatness must be forged. For Kudukhov, this was legacy, proof that heart can stand toe-to-toe with history. And for the sport itself, it was a reminder of why heavyweight boxing endures. Because when giants collide, the ring doesn't just reveal who is better, it reveals who they really are.